Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting for Wednesday, December 5th. And I would also like to say that we are on the territory of the Coast Salish people, acknowledging that we are on the Coast Salish people's territory. And also, we would need actually an approval of the agenda before you. So moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Moving on now to the adoption of the minutes of the committee meeting from November 21st. Moved. Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes?
There's no business arising, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We'll now turn to the public input period. The purpose of the public input period is to provide the public with an opportunity to comment on the agenda items before the board, committee, or commissions considers the items. The public input period procedure policy provides the public to proceed in a timely fashion. Public input period items cannot include matters which are or have been the subject of a public hearing. Is there anyone from the gallery that wishes to come forward to the microphone to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to number 5, the delegations. I'd like to welcome Jeff Strom to the podium, please. Good afternoon, Jeff, and welcome.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I member of the Electoral Services Committee and interested citizens. Good afternoon, too. And my name is Jeff Strong, as was reported, and I'm an atmospheric climate scientist by profession, but today I'm here to address an issue in our subdivision of Jim's Crescent, and I'm representing residents of that subdivision and immediate adjacent residents around it. So if we can put my presentation up on the board, or can I do that myself, or I'll let you do it. I might frig it up.
I believe it's here.
I'll just bring up the first slide.
Okay.
Do you want to put it on view or full screen? Oh, it's on. Oh, okay. All right. So I understand the pointer doesn't work on TV screens, which is unfortunate. But anyway, you see Jim's Crescent there at the intersection of Telegraph Road and Cowichan Bay Road.
Sorry, I can show you how that works.
Okay.
You press Control and you click that down. Look, and you'll see.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. Thank you. And on checking in October, I found that the sewer system out of Cowichan Bay extended up as far as, and it's something got moved there, but it's right, should be right at the intersection of Cowichan Bay Road and Telegraph Road. No one told us about that, and no one in my subdivision that I've talked to knew about it, that it was that close. So I thought, well, let's have a look at that. And I talked with residents in the subdivision there, and they also weren't informed that the terminus was right there. So I got together a small petition, and I'm going to pass that on to Madam Chair, if you could, all the signatures are on there, if you could pass that down. And they signed the petition, and then some folks across the road along Telegraph Road said, we want to be in on that too, so I got some more signatures. And then people along Cowichan Bay Road to the left there, they also wanted to be in on it. So all those colored stars, in all I've got 25 signatures. There's a few I didn't pick up. I'm a busy person and I don't have time to go back and forth door to door to all these places. But so there's out of 31 homeowners there, I've got 25 signed the petition, which is over 80%, and all exuberantly in favor of getting a sewer line in, because we're all on septic systems. So that's the required extension. the red lines there, the extension along Telegraph Road, along Cowichan Bay Road to cover those, and into the subdivision there. It's the extra sewer lines amount to just over half a kilometer. So it's not a large area, but I recognize there's a major capital expense involved to put that in. I just want to focus for a moment on the pond behind us there to the southeast of the subdivision there, Boys Pond. I think I have it spelled right, but I might not. Boyles.
Boyles
I
Pond.
can never figure out if it was Boyles or Boys. Okay.
Boyles, yes.
Correction then, Boyles. And I'm as a meteorologist and a climate scientist and also hydrology, I take careful measurements of the water levels every day through the year. This shows 2015 and 2016 on there. So you see it reaches a peak there in late winter in February or March, and then evaporation takes it down through the spring, and as we get into summer it evaporates even faster, and by early to late August it's down to zero, my level at my end of the pond, which is not very deep. And then in the fall, with our fall monsoon setting in again, it mounts up again. Here's a picture at its peak there, just over 106 centimeters, 1 meter in other words, in early March. And you can see it's in over a part of my lawn there. That's about the maximum it ever gets, and I hope it never gets higher, because just to the right there is a door to my basement where my office is, and that's less than another meter to go there, and I'd be flooded out. The fencing you see there, the red fencing, is to keep the geese off my lawn, because geese have three motions. They walk along, and they eat and crap, right? And it makes a hell of a mess on the lawn. It's great fertilizer, but not very good for walking on. Here's what it looks like in the summertime. This is late July, and you can't really see the water there. It's down to about 25 centimeters there, and then a couple of weeks later it's down to zero. Okay, so just to show you that I know what I'm talking about, I also take daily precipitation measurements, and I have an evapotranspiration gauge as well, take daily readings on that. Some people say this is fed and lost by underground springs. I don't believe that at all. The numbers work out. It's almost strictly evaporation and precipitation. And down at the end of the pond, there is a drainage area that Mr. Boyle, I think, Boyles? Boyle opens up when it gets up, I guess when I'm reading around 100 centimeters, because it never gets higher than that, even though it precipitates further after that. So there we go. Now, wildlife on that pond. You'll see what I'm getting at here in a bit. As many as I've counted, estimated over 300 geese in the wintertime. They stay there year round. The highest numbers are actually during the winter, when you'll see on any given day 300 geese. They take off in the morning, go off foraging, and come back around dusk. And that's one. There's two joys about this. One is seeing them slide in and formation and landing on the water perfectly, and the other is watching their young in the spring. So you see these two lots of goslings, you call them, is it? I'm not a wildlife biologist, so I don't know. And the other thing about it is how the parents of the geese stick together and protect those. Don't dare go near them, because they'll attack you. Except for my dogs. They can walk among them and they don't bother, but humans, no. Then we get the occasional bald eagle in, but not very frequently, and he's just foraging, looking for something dead, I guess, to grab. The hawks are more frequent, and that's a good thing, because there are rats around the pond there. It's a wetland, and I do have a large composting area down at one end of my property, but he takes care of the rat problem for me. Then there's Big Bird, a single blue heron that comes, I don't know if it's the same one every year, I think it is. And he comes in when our water level is low, so he can forage there, and then leaves later on when the water level gets too high. And then our ducks, I got Michael and Michelle there. I gave them names, the same pair that come back every year, and they have young. And that's a picture I took there about a week ago. Michelle, I'm sure of, and they say they mate for life, and I believe it's the same mallard, the one on the left. And turtles, we have large turtles there. Again, they're very skittish creatures. You can't go outside, they'll disappear immediately, so I take a fuzzy picture through a window and a screen to get them. And then, greatest joy of all is see in late winter the swans on the pond. And they don't stay very long, and only between mid-January and mid-March, the only time I've seen them. In this picture, there's over 80 trumpeter swans there. Now, they have difficulty landing and takeoff because they're a lot clumsier getting off the water and even getting back on. And I've found the odd one dead on the water that I've had to pull out. He's hit a tree and broken his neck and then drowned in the water, which is unfortunate. But okay, here's the pond, Boy's Pond we're talking about here. Now, I've taken my GPS and done some measurements on the road there outside my property there, which is the one on the southeast corner of Jim's Crescent and Telegraph Road. And it's at 100 meters. Up at the other end, it's also 100 meters. And on the corner, there's about a meter lower at 99 meters. Across the pond from me, my neighbor there, his house is at 102, and the field beyond about 105 meters. The pond itself is at 95 meters in the summertime, and then it gains about a meter, 100 centimeters during the winter with rainfall.
Excuse me, Mr. Strom, you have about 2 minutes to go.
Okay,
How much more
we'll
time?
wrap it up quickly
Okay.
here. Okay, so it's easy. You don't have to be a hydrologist to know which way the runoff is there. It's all into that pond. And if any one of those septic systems fails, and we're into a heavy rainfall period, of course, it's going into that pond in a very environmentally sensitive ecosystem. But something else a neighbor pointed out to me this morning is that it probably affects the school ground over there as well. It's at 97 meters. And they took out the ditch along the side of Telegraph Road was taken out a number of years ago, so there's no drainage that way. So there you have it. So it's a waiting environmental hazard for waterfowl and humans. Services received for our taxes. I'll wrap it up quick if you'll let me. Our annual taxes range from $2,200 to $4,500 in that subdivision. So the annual total, I guesstimated, is somewhere around $115,000 plus or minus $5,000. Direct services to our homeowners, we get our water, and we get biweekly garbage and recycling collection, for which we're also assessed an additional bi-monthly and quarterly fees. So CVRD is set up on a user pay basis. I'm told there's no funding to extend the sewage system network, no more capacity units available, no use in asking for an extension. But I say yes to a little bit better planning in Cowichan Valley for future infrastructure than the above answer suggests. Our justification I'll go through quickly. One of the oldest subdivisions in the area, 25 to 50 years, and likewise the sewage systems, the septic systems, is the only nearby subdivision not connected to the sewage network, and we want to know why. We weren't even asked about it. Present septic fields are well past their half-life. Some have already failed. If you're responsible, you repair them or replace them, but some may not. And we wish to remove the risk of a sudden pollution episode into this environmentally sensitive wetland. And with our annual taxes, the cost of extending that network, I made a guesstimate here, talking to an engineer and a few other people, probably around $200,000 to $250,000 just to put the pipes in. So about double the taxes. So homeowners are willing to pay connection fees and probably an annual infrastructure fee that municipal governments are want to put in your taxes, and I'm sure they'll do it. Our request is to find or help us to find provincial or federal infrastructure funding to have the sewage network extended into Jim's Crescent. I'm personally prepared to write proposals requesting funding. Some possibilities are things like Duck Sound Limited, maybe BC Hydro. Boyle's Pond has become an important environmentally sensitive ecosystem, and we'd like to remove that threat. So it's not a matter of we want the sewage system, we need to be on the sewage network, and I think that should be obvious. So thank you, and I'm open to any comments or questions. No negatives, please. I've heard enough negatives.
Thank you very much, Mr. Strom. This is in Area D, so this actual subdivision is in Area D. I've never actually had anybody call me on this issue. Even canvassing, I hadn't heard about this. But I guess we could have a meeting with this group and update them on what the costs and what it is and everything else. Because that would be the proper way of going about
That's
it as
fine,
well,
yeah.
is actually communicating what the issues are, how much the cost, and how we would do this, and the who, what, and where. So we could leave it at that. And
The answers I got were they weren't aware that it was that close to terminus. None of them were. Which is
that
strange.
has been at that area for quite a while, that it had extended to that area quite a while ago, but I am very much aware of the flooding, even in Bench School, and the septic fields that are along Telegraph Road. I have had complaints on that, and I worked at Bench for 10 years and walked through the mud a few times, and septic fields. So there is definitely an issue. Some of it is connected to Ministry of Transportation drainage as well. So this is something that if you have your 30 or 25 people, it would be great to have a meeting at Bench School and discuss this further. So
If you can set a date and contact me, I'll
Sure.
certainly arrange that.
I'll do that. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Moving on now to correspondence. Not seeing any correspondence.
There's no correspondence?
Thank you. Moving on to information, we will do IN1. If there's any questions on any of this is for information only, any questions on any of the area planning commissions or parks? Director Acton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Area B Parks has requested a motion that I would like to support here, that they would like to have the CVRD support and explore avenues with the province to designate Lot 228 as park as per the official community plan.
So you're making a motion for that that's already in your, okay? Is there someone that's going to second
I'd
that
like someone to
motion?
second that. So there, it's called Lot 228, and it's Crown land that has been designated park in our official community plan. I just need people's support to continue the investigation of this. It's something that is likely going to happen at the parks level.
So it's been moved and seconded.
Thank you.
Discussion on this motion. Director Salmon.
So is that the parcel beside north of Mount Bald or south of Mount Bald? Okay. I support that.
Seeing no other hands up, I'm going to move the resolution. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on, oh, it's not going away from my screen. Moving on now to R1, Mr. Tippett, verbal report on the update of the rezoning application for Simpson Road.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't actually have a visual presentation or even a formal report here. Basically, what I'll recap for the committee's benefit is the history. This is an application that was received in 2016 for rezoning related to the Schnitzer Steel recycling site at Simpson Road, which is just south of Nanaimo Airport, visible from the Trans-Canada Highway. At present, the use there is either legal non-conforming or maybe not fully legal non-conforming as well. That is yet to be determined, but they did apply to regularize the permitted use through a rezoning application. It appeared in a report from another staff member before this committee some time ago, and the committee moved it forward to the board with a recommendation that bylaws be read and that there be a public hearing, provided the applicant enter into a covenant concerning the some of the conditions of use that were associated with the proposed change in zoning. And the correspondence that you have in the agenda is in relation to that. The applicants have indicated that it's, given the land ownership arrangement on the property, it's, the owner is not interested in pursuing a covenant. So that calls into question the process that the committee resolved to do last time. We can't actually proceed to bylaws and a public hearing without coming back to the committee and having the committee reconsider whether or not it makes sense to proceed in the absence of a covenant or finding some alternative that is to the committee's satisfaction. So with that, I probably should turn it over to Nuris Kara, who is here, and he can present his case for not having a covenant and what other measures might be possible to satisfy the committee's desires. Thanks.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, everyone, for giving me the time here to speak. So as Mike had mentioned, part of the reason why we're requesting a change of the covenant requirement for some of the concrete paving works that we committed to for a couple of reasons. Number one, our landlord, Cassidy Sales and Service, they mentioned that there's a lot of, there's about 9 items registered on title, and there's about 7 to 9 undersurface rights on there. So to chase some of these people down, we're not sure if they're alive or deceased, it would be a monumental task. And so they weren't prepared to go through that. So what we're proposing to do is, as an alternative, is see if the EASC is willing to include a condition within our pending waste stream management license. My understanding is that the waste stream management license, or WSML as it's called, has been on hold until our zoning amendment application has been, I guess, resolved. So out of the 3 areas we committed to paving, one of them has already been completed. There's 2 other areas that we can't complete for budgetary reasons, and obviously given the weather conditions. So what we're asking is if we can include that as a condition rather than the covenant. There's also some legal ambiguity in some of the language that, again, the landlord and Schnitzer themselves weren't comfortable with. And so bottom line is we're just asking if, again, if we can present, if what we're proposing is acceptable, and we're prepared to provide another formal letter from Schnitzer, from our legal counsel, to support that specific condition in the WSML.
Okay, thank you very much. Turning to the director of the area.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think quite some time ago we had come to some sort of conclusion of something that would make this more palatable to the community that has had a lot of complaints about a lot of issues in this particular area. I think that I really need more information in a more concrete matter to actually say that I support or don't support. The one thing that really does concern me is the fact that the property owner is not willing to sign over a covenant on that, and that is something that can really, if without that, you can't give the community the comfort knowing that nothing else will happen than what they've already put on. So I'm not going to make a recommendation, but I would like more information if we could have that, and perhaps we could find the original PowerPoint presentation that we received a number of years ago. So that's what I would move as a motion, is
You're
to
referring this back to staff?
staff, yes.
For some background information?
Yes.
Or historical background information as
Yes.
well. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Moving on now to R2. Ms. Herrera, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay. R2, this is application for file ALR 18A01, relating to the expansion of a non-farm use within the Agricultural Land Reserve for a CVRD skate park. So I'm just going to do a brief presentation and introduce the application and touch on a few points from the staff report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end. And also the applicant, Kim Little from the Kerry Park Recreation Center, and she is also in attendance as well. So I'll just start by outlining the location, and here's the subject property map, and this property is located at 2860 Wilkinson Road, which is on the corner of Shawnigan Mill Bay Road within Electoral Area A. And the property is 4.56 hectares and is known as the Sports Field Complex there. The Kerry Park Ice Arena is on the opposite corner to the east. And the aerial photo clearly shows the existing sports fields, and on the southern tip of the property is the existing skate park, and there's also a gravel parking area beside it, and to the west is some farmland. This is the official community plan and ALR map, and this map, the ALR is shown in the green hatching, if you can see that there. So this map is also included as attachment D in your report package. And the property is within the ALR, as you can see, and it is also designated agricultural resource in the OCP. And permission was granted by the Agricultural Land Commission, or ALC, to develop the sports complex on the property, which is considered a non-farm use. The ALC requires that an application be submitted for any expansion of a non-farm use, which is why this application has been submitted to the ALC. When the ALC receives these applications, they forward them to the applicable local government, and the local government has the option to provide a recommendation to the ALC as to whether the application should be approved or not. So this is what is being proposed, the expansion of the existing skate park, and that does not line up anymore. That portion on the western boundary is the actual expansion, which is about 226 square meters. So staff is recommending that this ALR application be forwarded to the ALC with a recommendation for approval, and page 4 of your staff report provided a brief analysis as to why, and overall this application is not considered to affect the agricultural potential of this land. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you so much. Is there any questions for staff or the applicant? Somebody going to move the recommendation? So moved and seconded by Director Salmon. And any more discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And you're up next as well.
Sorry, didn't have my mic on. Again, this one, I'll also provide just a brief introduction and can answer any questions at the end. The applicant for this development permit is Ryan Horston of J.E. Anderson and Associates. And this is the subject property map. The property is located at 2103 Ida Avenue in Electoral Area B. On the first page of your staff report, there's also an overview map showing the property's general location within the electoral area, and this property is located west of the lake. This aerial photo shows more of the existing context. The subject property is just over 2 hectares in size, contains a single family dwelling, and is about 420 meters down the road from the lake. And there's no community water, sewer, or storm services in the area. This is the proposed subdivision plan. This is a 2-lot subdivision, and this is included as attachment B in your report. This will divide the property in half, essentially creating 1 new additional lot, and each lot would be 1 hectare. And the property is zoned R2, which is called suburban residential in the Area B zoning bylaw. And the minimum lot size for R2 is 1 hectare when the lot is not connected to a community water or sewer system. So the permit application is only one part of the overall subdivision process, and the purpose of this permit application is to deal with the guidelines that apply in the South Cowichan Rural Development Permit Area. The guidelines listed on this slide were reviewed as part of this application, as these are the only ones applicable to this site and to this proposed development, and copies of those guidelines were included in your package too. So I mentioned these guidelines again just to sort of emphasize the parameters that are looked at with the application review. And it's always the applicant's responsibility to demonstrate that their application meets these guidelines. And in this case, the proposed two-lot subdivision included these 3 sets of guidelines that applied. So it is staff's opinion that the applicant has demonstrated compliance with the applicable guidelines, and we've recommended approval of the application. Thank you.
Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none? Are you moving it, Director Acton? Is there a seconder? It's been moved and seconded, or is any more discussion? Seeing none, can I have you read the resolution, please?
Thank you. The recommendation before you is that it be recommended to the board. 1, that application number DP 18B18 at 2103 Ida Avenue be approved, and 2, that the General Manager of Land Use Services be authorized to permit minor revisions to the permit in accordance with the intent of DP guidelines of OCP bylaw number 3510.
Call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We're moving on now to R4, Kasha, and also there is an added correspondence to that piece of material. So you have it in front of you. It's R4.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello to everyone I haven't met yet. My name is Kasha Vegan, and I'm a planner in the Land Use Services Department. I'm here to speak to you about a proposal to amend the official community plan and zoning bylaw for Area F. This is an application made by Timber West and Couverton Real Estate, and the applicants are here in the audience. All right, so regional context, Honeymoon Bay, located in Area F. The property is 4 parcels in total, Lot A, Lot 1, Lot 2, and Lot 21. Lot 21 is a logging road, but it is included as part of this application. For those of you that were originally here as part of the first time this came forward, the committee did look at this at April of 2016 and did recommend to move forward with drafting bylaws. So this is why I'm here for you today, is to show you those, to bring forward those draft bylaws for consideration. Here's an image of the corner of the parcel. As you can see, it's forested at the moment, and there's the logging road. That's South Shore Road. These are 2 images, one looking north towards Cowichan Lake, and the other one is looking towards what will be known as the industrial area, so all very forested at the moment. The surrounding uses include mostly residential. One of the newest developments is the Stinkwa as well as Pebbles West, so those are residential developments that are going to be adjacent to this parcel. And the stars show existing commercial areas, 2 of which are currently vacant. Existing OCP designations include industrial, forestry, agriculture, and parks. So you can see the 2 lots at the top are industrial, which abut the roads. And then we have the majority of the remainder of the parcel forestry and agricultural. The existing zoning is heavy industrial, forestry resource, agriculture resource, and institutional. The intent of the heavy industrial is mostly related to forestry. The forest resource is for the for logging purposes. Agriculture is obviously for farming, and then the institutional is for park and institutional. The parcel also includes, lot number 2 includes agricultural land reserve, which you can see here highlighted in green. Although the parcel is not currently serviced, it does fall within the Honeymoon Bay water service area, and there's currently no sewer there. In terms of the wildfire hazard, the majority of the parcel falls under extreme, and the remainder under high. So the proposal that's being brought forward to you has been amended since the last time it came forward to the committee, but overall the intent is very much the same. The area in blue, about 2.1 hectares, is proposed to be a mixed commercial residential area, so directly abutting the roads. Directly to the south of that is proposed to be residential, so 24.4 hectares. There's also proposed to be some industrial land, which is about 7.3 hectares. And the applicants are proposing 2 community amenity contributions. One is a park, which includes the majority of a sensitive wetland ecosystem, as well as a parcel for a utility lot, which I'll speak to further. They're also proposing to amend the boundaries of the parcels. The intent of this boundary lot adjustment, which is currently with the Ministry of Transportation for consideration, is one, to delineate the lands that are within the ALR, because right now they don't line up. So to ensure that that's separated, and then to also delineate the lot proposed for the utility, and the remainder is for the residential, commercial, and industrial lands. So as I mentioned, one of the amenities is for a lot for a proposed sewer system that is badly needed, as according to the engineering department. This will service Missachi Lake and also in the hopes of servicing Honeymoon Bay. So the area in red shows the areas that are currently serviced by a community sewer system. So the proposal is to redesignate quite a bit of the land. Bear with me, there's quite a bit of changes here, so I'll try my best to explain it. So the lands closest to the road that will go from industrial to that mixed-use commercial zone, designation. Below that will be an urban residential, which is an existing designation, but we're having to change the permitted smallest lot size to accommodate this application. Then we will have park designation, light industrial designation, and then a servicing designation. The proposed zoning includes a new mixed commercial residential zone, as the Area F zoning bylaw currently does not have that type of a zone. It will allow for a mix of both local commercial and multifamily residential. The zone was written in a way to allow one or the other or both, depending on what the market demands at the time of the proposed development. The mixed residential is also a new zone. This will allow for both single-family, duplex, triplex, and quadruplex, once again dependent on what the market demands at the time. So it allows for that flexibility. The industrial will be a new light industrial zone for Area F. Currently, we just have the heavy industrial. So this is in relation to the demands that were, the recommendations that were made in the industrial study that was commissioned by the Economic Development Department. So we tried to align what is currently in demand and the permitted uses within this new zone. And then we have a new U2 zone, as there's no public utility zone that's currently in place in Area F. We've also proposed new development permit areas. So there'll be a new mixed commercial residential development permit area, a mixed residential, and a light industrial. The purpose of these development permit areas is to ensure proper form and character, so that the development proposed meets the character of the surrounding area, as well as ensuring that it's high quality. And for the to address the wildfire risk, we're proposing a wildfire DPA, which will require implementation of the fire smart principles for any new development. So as I mentioned, this application did come forward to you in 2016. At that time, another staff member, as well as today as myself, we still have concerns with this application. One of the concerns that we have is there's negative population growth projected for this area. So there's no immediate demand until 2036 for any new development. The area in brown, you can see, is a future development area, and that has been in place for over 10 years, and no one has come forward to redevelop it. And based on the residential policies within the official community plan for Area F, the policy specifically states that if there is sufficient land for development, that no rezonings should be considered for additional residential development. Thirdly, we don't know what the market demand is for this area. The applicant didn't come forward specifying that there is demand for commercial or for residential, so that's a challenge. It also hinders development services abilities that should the public's demand for a certain type of development change over time, we are locked into what will be proposed at this moment in time. Also, the costs associated with this development, you know, it's additional residential development in a rural area, and there's, you know, infrastructure costs associated with that. And lastly, there's currently the Area F OCP that's going under review, so it's just a challenge of that timing with this application. However, we recognize that there is a need for this utility, and given that and the committee's desire for these draft bylaws, the bylaws as well as the development permit areas were written in a way to allow for flexibility, given we don't know what time and when into the future this will be developed. We wanted to make sure that takes into consideration the local context, so looking at what existing housing stock is there and ensuring that it will fit it, ensuring high quality design, environmental protection of the wetlands, as well as wildfire protection. So given all that information, staff are recommending that the referrals from these organizations be accepted and that the draft bylaws move forward to first and second reading, and that there be drafts prepared prior to the public hearing to secure those lands that are proposed for community amenity contributions, and that the public hearing be scheduled with directors of E, F, and G as delegates. Thank you.
Great job. Thank you, Kasia. Is there any questions for staff? For Salmon.
Thank you. So it's the first time, I think, for new directors to have seen this, but just so the basic sketch, then you went through a lot of reasons why it's not a great idea. The main reason to do it would be the sewer system that it would provide, and if I'm right, when would that actually happen? Would it wait until the actual development proceeded in maybe 20 years, or would it happen before that?
So the utility lands would be transferred over to the CVRD as part of the approval of the OCP and rezoning, and there is currently a grant that the engineering department has applied for, which would allow the construction to occur relatively soon. And they can speak more to that if they like, but.
Mr. Dennison, would you like to contribute to the
Just a bit, yes.
conversation?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, we do have the grant. We've been awarded a $1.5 million grant for Missachi Lake sewer service area. One of the, really difficult challenges we have with Missachi Lake is that it's a very old system. It's 70 years old. The disposal system is completely archaic. It's comprised of buried underground cribs of logs and whatnot, and they fail quite regularly, and unfortunately the disposal system and the lake become one from time to time, which is a very serious matter and threatens the environment in the area as well as human health. And we've been looking for ways to solve this problem ever since I got here 24 years ago, and there's been a lot of problems along the way trying to get there. Unfortunately, the other difficult challenge we have is that the service area is very, very small. There's only 48 homes in the service area, and a lot of the people living there are fairly marginal as far as income and disposable income for upgrades and extra costs. And so we were very, very fortunate to get this grant. It provides an opportunity to solve the problem at Missachi, develop this new disposal area, and also ultimately, we hope, service the Honeymoon Bay area as well. We have a board resolution to apply for another grant, a phase 2 to this, to provide servicing in Honeymoon Bay and Missachi Lake and add a treatment plant component to the disposal area. So we're hopeful we get that grant, and that would really solve the problem for sewage in the whole South Shore area. So we're very hopeful we get that.
Thank you, Mr. Dennison. Moving to Director Acton. Is that a follow-up, Director Salmon?
I'm not sure if my question was answered then, so that sounds like you've got a grant to do a piece of the needed work. So this rezoning that would provide some additional sewage services, maybe just, you see where I'm going with that?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have the grant is based on this premise of connecting into the system. We get, the new lands come with a rezoning. So unfortunately, one of our challenges is that we can't acquire land using grant money. The grant programs do not allow you to acquire land. So if we were trying to find other lands, that would be hundreds of thousands of dollars of expense that could only be directly charged to the customers of the system. And then in addition to that, we'd have to build all the rest of the infrastructure as well. So it ends up being a very expensive proposition. Also, it's not that easy to find suitable ground that have the right conditions for ground disposal. In Massachi Lake area itself, the water table is quite close to the surface, and we have a well in the immediate area as well. Our water source for the Massachi Lake area is right in the middle of the community. So siting a ground disposal system would be challenging. We've tried to look at it before, and it's not an easy thing to do. And then acquiring the land too, and the expense of that is also a big challenge. So we thought this was the solution. We got the grant to cover it. It leads towards a long-term solution for both Massachi Lake and Honeymoon Bay in an area that has really good ground disposal conditions. And ultimately, for siting a treatment plant, it's set back somewhat from the community, which of itself can be a very big challenge as siting works, because most people don't want it anywhere close to them. So in this case, we have it set back from the community, from Honeymoon Bay some distance, and it's buffered by other areas, so it works really well in that regard as well.
Okay, so even if these lots aren't developed for 10 or 20 years, that's okay, the sewage improvements can go ahead?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch. Oh, yeah, the time, we get this as soon as, the applicant has indicated that at third reading, they would transfer the lands to us.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll have that quite soon. We believe.
Director Acton, then I believe Director Morrison.
I had two questions, but I think Brian, Mr. Dennison answered it. You mentioned something about could you go back to the zoning map? There was you mentioned that the OCP would have to be amended to allow the smaller permitting size. Can you further
That's correct.
point that out?
So
please?
currently, the designation speaks to allowing lots no smaller than 695 square meters, and the applicant is proposing 600 square meter lots. So 95 square meters smaller than what's currently permitted. So instead of creating new designation, we wanted to work with the existing designation and amend it.
Why are they asking for an amendment on that? Is that?
Because they
For
would like to have
cost
600
effectiveness?
square meter lots. That's their proposal. So in order to meet their proposal, we would have to amend the designation.
Follow-up, Director Acton? Are you finished?
This proposal has a lot of give and takes in it, so I find it's challenging to look at just in one sitting, but obviously the committee has looked at it before.
Director Morrison, and then Director Nicholson.
I'll yield because I don't know if the applicant plan to step
Okay.
forward or not.
Could I get Director Marcotte to turn off her microphone, please? And Director Nicholson?
So, I'm a little
Can you
confused.
just pull down your microphone? Yeah.
I'm a little confused about, we just went through an Area F OCP review. So I'm confused as to why this wasn't considered as part of that.
I'll leave that to Mike Tippett as he was
Mr.
working in
Tippett, do you
community
have
planning.
some information on the review?
Madam Chair, I have some information. I don't know how helpful it'll be, though. Typically, it presents a dilemma, actually, when there's an in-stream application underway in a community such as this one, when we are also doing a community plan. And I think it's generally not normal practice to say, let's suspend the application and let's consider it in the context of the plan review, because then it tends to consume the plan review itself, and some of the blue sky thinking or the open minds are lost to the fact that they're all either trying to find a way to posture for or against or whatever it is, the specific development proposal. So a conscious decision was taken to leave it out, let the application process unfold. I think it's fair to say that there's certainly nothing in the current plan, which is the actual de facto bylaw there today, that would necessarily be poisonous to this application. And I think the recognition was that if it was approved, the new OCP, which is right now approaching a public hearing stage, you know, it would be an amendment. Actually, the amendment is to the current plan, isn't it, Kasia? So, yeah, anyway, there's a bit of a timing thing there. As I say, this application predated the contracted OCP review. So in short, no, we don't normally deal with development applications in plan reviews in that specific way.
Okay, thank you. Does the applicant have anything to add?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Electoral Area Directors. Kasia had summarized the application pretty eloquently in terms of what we're proposing and the nature of the proposal. What I'll try to explain to you is some more of the historical background as to why we've actually come to where we are today. So a number of years ago, as Brian mentioned, Missachi's been experiencing some significant sewage disposal issues. And a report was done in, I think it was 2007, 2008 by Stantec, which identified a significant need for a community sewage system for Missachi. And the idea at the same time, and the recommendation that was done by Stantec was, well, look, if you're going to be doing a sewage disposal system, you should be looking at it holistically and providing it for not only Missachi, but also for Honeymoon Bay. So at that time, the engineering department engaged with ourselves, Timber West, and a few other landowners to look at some of their land bases in that immediate area to determine whether or not there were some suitable lands. As Brian mentioned, it's a very complex issue in terms of identifying suitable parcels that can accommodate drain fields without significant public impact, interface issues, where they're located, hydrology, and things such as that. So we engaged a hydrologist independently and had a bunch of our land surveyed and identified a few key areas that could accommodate the sewage drain field site. One of them being the Honeymoon Bay location, another one being a location in Missachi. The issue with the location in Missachi is that there's a challenge with running it all the way to Honeymoon Bay. The issue, the identification of the lands in Honeymoon Bay provided opportune access to